This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Hello again. Thanks for checking in. More air quality alerts in effect today across New York and Pennsylvania. Smoke from those Canadian wildfires continues to waft our way. These Rochester residents admit it's not easy to breathe out there.
The air quality is killing me.
And I was like, is there a fire in Canada again?
You know what? You learn to live with it. I'm not the type of person that's going to stay indoors.
I feel like where I could barely breathe.
I have asthma, so smoke is no joke.
Smoke is no joke, that's for sure. New York Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald says those with compromised immune systems should consider limiting their time outside today.
Anyone who's over 65, anyone with lung disease, anyone with heart disease, anyone who's pregnant, these are the higher risk groups.
Smoke-filled skies, just one of our weather concerns. The lack of rain is the other. Meteorologist Kevin Williams says our next chance for any meaningful precipitation is not until at least next week. A Texas tussle over congressional maps continues. More than 50 Democrats from the Lone Star State have fled Texas and are in exile in states like New York, Massachusetts, and Illinois. They're protesting a new redistricting bill that could result in Democrats losing seats in Congress next year. Dallas Democrat Jasmine Crockett.
They expect us to take the punch and say thank you. Well, I am here to tell you not only are we going to punch back, but we're about to beat you down.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Democrats are freaking out, engaging in rhetoric, but I don't think they have the capability of doing anything about it.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul welcomed some of those runaway Texans to Albany yesterday.
This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off. And I say, bring it on.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says Governor Hochul is guilty of doing the exact same thing in her state, gerrymandering Republicans into political oblivion. He says in Texas, the political sands are shifting.
The Democrats' problem, it's not redistricting lines, it's the voters' minds that they've lost. They have just been rejected by Texans.
The governor of Texas is threatening to vacate the seats of all the Democrats in exile and have them arrested. Israel voting today on a plan to reoccupy Gaza. The Security Cabinet expected to greenlight this military mission. It allows Israeli Defense Forces to take control of the entire Palestinian territory.
The leaders of Hamas just a couple of days ago applauded what happened on October 7th and said, we will do it again and again. And we can believe Hamas when they say that. So Israel really has no choice.
Former New York Assemblyman Dov Hikind says Israel's being forced to flex its military muscle because of the unyielding demands of Hamas.
They are demanding they be able to keep their weapons and that they continue to control Gaza into the future. That's impossible. That can never happen.
Israeli Defense Forces could occupy the entire Gaza Strip, including areas where hostages are being held. The Department of Justice has launched a grand jury investigation into members of the Obama administration. Has to do with an alleged conspiracy that tied President Trump to Russia during the 2016 election. This grand jury probe follows the release of evidence from Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. There's been a change in Trump administration deportation policy.
Border Patrol agents have been ordered to stop deporting migrants under President Trump's ban on asylum claims. A federal court has ruled the president cannot unilaterally suspend humanitarian protections for asylum seekers, but agents have now been ordered to process migrants through the procedure known as expedited removal.
Correspondent Christopher Cruz, the Cleveland Clinic, offering tips today on getting your kids back on a back-to-school sleep schedule.
Sleep specialist Dr. Brian Chen advises parents to start gradually getting children to bed earlier, because that will be a lot easier than a flip to earlier bedtime at the last minute right before that first day of school.
In the summer, we tend to go to bed later. The sun is setting later. Our body's natural circadian rhythm, our clock in our brain, is set for later. And so we might be going to bed a lot later than we normally would be for school.
He says having a good bedtime routine also helps and advises against phones, other screens, and bright lights right before bed. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Still to come on the Noon Report. For a Tuesday, algae in the water, National Night Out, and drug deaths are down. How come? We'll talk about it next.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. A pretty steady state weather pattern, just more warmth, haze, and dry weather. For the short term, at least. Forecast details are coming up.
All right, Kev, we'll see about 10 minutes. Algae blooms on Chautauqua Lake causing problems this summer. Big problems. Doug Lattimore has waterfront property in the town of Ellery, New York.
Depending on which way the wind blows, it certainly does emit a smell that'll come right up to our front porch and into the house.
He says the shoreline is overrun with algae and seaweed, and some family members have suffered skin irritations because of it.
We've had a couple of the folks in our family get a rash on their legs from going into the water.
Lattimore says swarms of insects hover over the algae blooms, making it difficult to spend any amount of time outside. The Chautauqua County Health Department urging folks to avoid contact with water that is discolored or contains surface scum. A teenage girl has died after crashing her bicycle into a car at an intersection in the town of Redding, New York. That's about 4 miles northwest of Watkins Glen. The Schuyler County Sheriff has identified the victim as 19-year-old Emily Hoover. Tonight marks the 41st annual National Night Out, the event designed to foster relations between the police and the communities they serve. Pat Crendel with the Buffalo Police Department.
Well, you know, it's nice to not just be in the car going call to call. It's nice to get out and stretch your legs and walk. You get to talk to more people and actually hear what's going on. People tend to come up to you and explain issues that are going on that they wouldn't necessarily report.
Buffalo Pastor James Giles leads the Peacemakers, which helps foster positive relationships between the cops and the community.
That's how you get to know somebody and you discover something that, hey, this is a human being. They want most of the same things that we want. That is so essential. Things can get solved, you know, when you have community trust.
National Night Out celebrated with block parties, cookouts, and other gatherings to show support for law enforcement. A corrections officer from Central New York sentenced to 15 years in prison yesterday for the beating death last December of inmate Robert Brooks. It happened at the Marcy Correctional Facility near Utica. Christopher Walrath pled guilty in May to first-degree manslaughter. Good news to report in the ongoing opioid epidemic in Oneida County, New York. There's been a dramatic drop in the number of fatal overdoses there the past year. County Executive Anthony Picenti credits the work of the Oneida County Opioid Task Force, which has over 80 members.
We kind of did a reboot of the task force over the last month to kind of get them a little more focused on some specific areas.
Picenti says the availability of opioid antidotes like naloxone has been instrumental in saving lives. Drug interdiction specialist and former addict Megan Western Flanders.
You can't force someone to stop using. We need to meet them where they are at, exactly where they're at in life.
And it's not just Oneida County that is seeing a noticeable decline in fatal drug overdoses. Statewide, there's been a 32% drop in opioid-related deaths the past year. Geisinger has just opened a new inpatient behavioral health center in Danville, Pennsylvania. This 96-bed facility provides services for adult, pediatric, and adolescent care. Geisinger says the center will also serve as a teaching hospital for students and residents from its College of Health Sciences. New York Governor Kathy Hochul vowing to fight fire with fire, she says, amid the Republican efforts in Texas to enact redistricting. She condemns the move as legal insurrection, even while promising to pursue it herself.
This is no longer the Wild West. We're not going to tolerate our democracy being stolen in a modern-day stagecoach hoist by a bunch of law-breaking cowboys. All's fair in love and war. That's why I'm exploring with our leaders every option to redraw our state congressional lines as soon as possible.
Hochul hosted a panel of runaway Texas Democrats yesterday at the Capitol in Albany. More than 50 Texas Democrats have fled the Lone Star State to avoid having to vote on a new redistricting bill. Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
To run to states like New York and Illinois to protest redistricting is kind of like running to Wisconsin to protest cheese. It's just kind of outrageous. Those are New York and Illinois, two hallmark states that have already done redistricting to eliminate Republicans.
In 2022, Governor Hochul and the Democratic supermajority in Albany did a gerrymandering maneuver to redraw all of New York's 26 congressional districts. Today, Democrats control 19 of those 26 seats in Congress. The Pennsylvania state budget is now over a month late, and there's no end in sight to the stalemate. Governor Shapiro admits it's more than a little bit irritating.
I will tell you, I know it is frustrating. I introduced my budget about 175 days ago. We knew what the issues were then. We still know what they are now.
Republicans argue the issue is too much spending. State Senator Pat Stefano does not expect a budget deal anytime soon.
My guess would be August is a probability, greater probability in September.
The latest state budget ever in Pennsylvania was in 2016. That spending plan was 9 months past the due date. A new text-based scam is making the rounds, and these con artists pretend to represent Amazon.
The scam begins with a text message claiming Amazon conducted a routine quality inspection and found that an item you recently purchased doesn't meet their standards or has been recalled. The text offers a full refund and assures you don't need to return the item as long as you click a link to request your refund. The FTC warns this is a phishing scam designed to steal your money or personal information. If you receive this text, do not respond or click any links. Instead, visit Amazon's website or log into your account through the app to verify any issues with your orders. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. The Little Valley, New York Fire Department says over a dozen people are okay after being rescued over the weekend off of an amusement ride at the Cattaraugus County Fair. Officials say the Vertigo ride malfunctioned and stopped moving, leaving riders suspended in a swing 50 feet in the air. Sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on Family Life.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, it was a big win for the Rangers and a tough loss for the Yankees. New York had a 5-4 lead in the 9th inning thanks to home runs from Giancarlo Stanton and Paul Goldschmidt. But then Jock Peterson hit a solo shot to send the game into extras when Josh Jung blasted a walk-off 3-run shot, and that gave Texas an 8-5 victory. The Bronx Bombers have now lost 4 in a row. The good news, it looks like Aaron Judge will be back in the lineup tomorrow. The Mets also went to 10 innings and lost their game to Cleveland 7-6. Pete Alonso, 4 for 5, a 3-run home run, but it's his 9th inning at-bat that he will probably remember the most. He came up with the bases loaded, 1 out, game tied, chance to win it, and he struck out. The Mets failed to score, and the Guardians went on to win it. Kyle Schwarber is a beast. He went 3 for 5, hit 2 home runs, one of which was a granny, drove in 6 to lead the Phillies to a 13-3 blowout of the Orioles. I'll tell you what, Schwarber, 40 home runs, 94 ribbies on the season, making a case as the MVP. Speaking of long balls, for Philadelphia, Bryce Harper, Edmundo Sosa, Harrison Bader, and Weston Wilson also belted them in that game. The Pirates walked it off against the Giants, tying the game in the 9th on a Joey Bart single, and then they won it on Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's ground ball, 5-4 the final. Around the league, your winners, the Astros, Tigers, Red Sox, Brewers, Reds, Angels, D-backs, Cardinals, and Blue Jays. Toronto pounded out 25 hits in an old-fashioned beatdown of the Rockies, 15-1 the final. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, man, thank you. And still to to come on the Noon Report. Smoky skies leads to air alerts. Texas Democrats remain in exile, and a youth hockey league with a purpose. We're talking to the president of Elmira Impact Hockey right after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. There's a meme on social media that quotes my colleague Glenn Sunshine as saying this, quote, "If I had a gun with 2 bullets and I was in a room with Hitler, bin Laden, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I'd shoot Rousseau twice." Well, Glenn insists that he never said that, but then he quietly admits he kind of wishes he had. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was one of the most influential thinkers and writers of the last 500 years. He was a defining figure of the Enlightenment. His ideas have especially infected the arenas of philosophy, education, and politics, and not in a good way. Another colleague of mine insists that the world deserves a real-life version of It's a Wonderful Life about Rousseau. Only in this version, we'd learn how much better history would have been without Rousseau, and we'd never want to go back. Rousseau's idea of the natural innocence of children, for example, has shaped modern notions of being child-centric. In this view, parents and teachers should never restrain children or push them toward any particular views. Rather, children should be encouraged to discover their own truth through their own experiences. Rousseau, by the way, left all 5 of his kids at an orphanage. And he also advocated another idea, a related one that's come to be known as the noble savage. In this view, evil does not originate within the human heart, it comes from society. Thus, the further people are able to get from civilization, the better they will be. In his book, Discourse on Inequality, Rousseau imagined prehistoric and tribal peoples living in a utopia with no marriage, no government, no property, and no morality. Now, of course, all of his musings came from the comfort of the salons of Western Europe. The explorers who actually discovered tribal people and witnessed how they lived told a very different story. Men like Francis Drake or Walter Raleigh and Charles Darwin all described the brutal worlds of poverty, famine, and slavery, despite these people being without the negative influence of so-called civilization. Really, the most dangerous ingredient in all of Rousseau's ideas was his unbounded confidence in human ability. He scoffed at formal religion, assuming that through unaided reason, humans could discover all truth. In his view, all we needed was to be freed from the chains of superstition and government authority. Ideas have consequences. Bad ideas have victims. Rousseau's ideas were very bad and left a long trail of victims throughout history. His legacy includes the failed utopian visions of the French Revolution, where tens of thousands of people were slaughtered in less than 40 years, as well as Karl Marx, whose legacy led to the deaths of 10 times that many people in just the 20th century alone. And without Rousseau, we may very well have avoided the twisted anthropology of thinkers like Margaret Mead and their appeals for so-called sexual liberty. Even Alfred Kinsey might have remained an unknown pseudo-scientific and perverted crackpot rather than the seminal researcher of the sexual revolution. Now, of course, Rousseau's not responsible for the evil of others, but his ideas did provide justification for some of the worst villains in human history. And that's why it's important that we understand ideas, including bad ones. Yes, worldview matters, and that's because ideas matter, if for no other reason than the misguiding musings of philosophers like Rousseau never just stay in the study. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you. Outside next, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Partly sunny, hazy, and warm. High temperatures in the low to mid 80s. Partly cloudy, hazy tonight. Low temperatures, low 60s. Tomorrow and Thursday, a fair amount of sunshine, but tomorrow afternoon could pop a stray thunder shower in parts of New York State. High temperatures both days in the low to mid 80s, and the level of hazy smoke will be diminishing over time.
All right, Kevin, that is good news indeed, getting that smoky air out of there. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm Bob Price, and here's what's going on Tuesday, the 5th of August. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has ordered state troopers to return House Democrats to the Capitol in Austin. More than 50 Texas Democrats are in exile in states like Illinois, Massachusetts, and New York. They're protesting a new redistricting bill ahead of next year's midterm. House Minority Leader Gene Yu.
This is the last tool that we have to stop Trump. If politicians can simply stop listening to their people, it's over. democracy, everything that America stands for will be gone.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
We are doing what is legal. We are doing what is right on behalf of Texans. We've had over 2 million people move here in the last couple of years. They're voting more and more Republican, and they deserve and want Republican representation in Congress.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott's ordered the arrest of all the Democrats who fled the Lone Star State. Attorney General Pam Bondi's ordered a grand jury investigation into several members of the Obama administration. Has to do with their role, or alleged role, in the Trump-Russia collusion hoax of 2016.
He has directed Justice Department staff to begin legal proceedings and ordered a federal prosecutor to present evidence to a grand jury, which could consider an indictment if the DOJ pursues a criminal case. It's unclear what the charges could be and who would face them, but we know President Trump has accused former President Obama of treason, leading an effort to link Trump to Russia and undermine his 2016 presidential campaign.
Correspondent Weijia Jiang. Western wildfires are popping up all over the place. There's one north of L.A. that's proven to be especially difficult.
Firefighters in the air and on the ground are working to defend the northern flank of the Gifford Fire, burning in California's Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. Evacuation orders, still in effect, were issued as the blaze balloons to more than 72,000 acres.
Jason Allen reporting. Israel has a plan to take full control of the Gaza Strip. The ongoing hostage situation is the reason why. Correspondent Raf Sanchez.
We have seen 2 videos of emaciated Israeli hostages released in the last week, one by Islamic Jihad, one by Hamas itself. These are hostages who've been held for 669 days now, and the goal clearly from the perspective of Hamas is to put pressure on the Israeli government to try to make a deal.
There are still 50 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Israel says more than half of them are dead. 3,200 Boeing machinists remain on strike in Missouri and Illinois.
There's not a lot of trust between the company and the shop, if you will, anymore. So all that needs to be repaired. And the last thing we need is a strike. This is the last thing we need right now. So somewhere that disconnect has manifested itself now into a strike, and here we are.
Union Rep Earl Schlusser says the striking workers make the machinery that powers our military.
They can go to McDonald's, Costco, and other places and make a wage rate more than they can out here. And then we're building military aircraft out here, right? And we want them to have a career out here. What's going to keep them here?
Boeing says its facilities in the St. Louis suburbs are still open, but will not be building products at a normal rate. Screenings for colon cancer are on the rise. That's good news. The number of Americans ages 45 to 49 who got colonoscopies has increased by more than 40% since the start of the decade.
Back in 2018, the American Cancer Society said for the first time, you know what, let's start screening people at 45 rather than 50. So you would have expected to see increased diagnosis of colon cancer at the early stage in that group. That's exactly what we saw, which is great news because caught very early, the cure rate is more than 90%.
CBS's Dr. John LaPook. Tonight's the 41st annual National Night Out, a time to foster relations between cops and the communities they serve. San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall.
Oftentimes people think of police as the enemy, and law enforcement is there to partner with neighbors to ensure their safety and their well-being.
National Night Out has been observed every first Tuesday in August since 1984. Today is National Traffic Light Day.
The first traffic light was installed in Cleveland, Ohio back in 1914. Back then it was basic with one sign for stop and one for go. Now we have 3 lights with a transitional yellow that is meant to slow you down, but the NTSB says more than half of us see yellow and speed up. Most are synchronized to offer a green wave pattern, but if you're even a second off, that green turns to red, and if you run it, it's going to cost you about $500. I'm Bree Tennis.
Thank you, Bree. By the way, the only place in the world where you'll find an upside-down traffic light, the green is on top, that's Tippery Hill in Syracuse, New York. How about that? You're listening to The Noon Report on Family Life.
giving rising young hockey stars a helping hand on their way up. Welcome back to another edition of Hometown Heroes on Family Life. I'm Mark Webster, and this week's guest is Tim Colpeen with Elmira Impact Hockey, which involves the local community in supporting promising young players from the world over who, for a season, call Elmira home. He spoke with our Bob Price.
We are actually going into our 6th season, and during that time we've had about 200 players from 12 different countries come to play hockey here in the Elmira area. And these players are aged 17 to 20. They come to play in our league because our league is heavily scouted by higher level junior leagues and also college hockey. So that's why they come to the United States and come play in our league to get that exposure.
I'd be very curious as to why, Tim, you chose to get involved in this. Is this one of the things where it found you or you found it? And why are you so passionate about this league?
Well, it was a little bit of both. We actually founded the program because there were many local players who had the ability to play hockey at this level, and they were leaving home to go play elsewhere. So we thought, well, what if we started a program that gave local players an opportunity to actually play? And since then, approximately 25% of our players have been local players, many of whom did go on to play higher level junior or college hockey.
Tim Colpeen with Elmira Impact Hockey is our guest on this week's edition of Hometown Heroes. Tim, of course, when you mentioned they come from all over the world, they will need places to live during the course of the 7-month season, and that's where your host families come in. Talk a little bit about the needs you have, how many families you need to host these players, and maybe somebody who's listening right now would say to themselves, hey man, that's something I might be interested in. How do I go about doing that?
Well, we do have a need for host families always. The one thing I've learned over our first 5 seasons is that you can never have too many. We do have, again, players that come from all over the world. These guys are aged 17 to 20. They're very responsible guys. They come here because they want to advance their hockey career, and they know how important it is to be responsible while they're here. They also all have passed criminal background checks. They provide their own transportation, and host families are paid a monthly stipend. We are always looking for more people to basically provide a safe home away from home for these players. And every year we need about 20 host families. And we have many, many families who are back with us season after season, but we are always looking for more families. And all you need is a little bit of room in your house. We can even provide the bed if you need it.
Wow. And we'll give the website where folks can reach out to you, Tim, at the end here and let them know that's how they can do it. You had told me years ago, these are the kind of kids you want to be around because they're all great kids. They all do well in school. I had a chance to see them play. Their star is rising, and they're getting looks by a lot of major colleges. So it's a great program, and you've been involved for a long time. How else can people get involved with Elmira Impact Hockey?
Well, beyond host families, we're always looking for business partners. We are a break-even organization, and this is not for the faint of heart on the financial side. So we have several great partners. We're always looking to add more. So if anybody's interested in getting involved with an organization that has a positive impact on not only international players, but also local families, the program has a positive economic impact on the region to the tune of about $2 million since we founded the program. So if that's something any business would like to be involved in, I'd like to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, and I know because I do games for the Elmira college team, hockey games. They played games at the Murray Athletic Center. Do they play most of their games there, or do they play downtown Elmira as well?
We play most of our games at the Murray Athletic Center, and we are growing into a more regional program, so we also play games in a few other venues in upstate New York, including Ithaca and the Binghamton area, and this year we're also going to play a weekend of games in Batavia.
Before we give that website, Tim, I'd just be curious, in the many years you've been associated with Elmira Impact Hockey, any anecdote or personal story that really inspires you, whether it has to do with a player or a host family or whatever, that tells you this is why I do this is why I put in those hours and put in the time because of stories like this?
Yeah, some of the most satisfying moments, I mean, I could go on forever. We've had a lot of success on the ice hockey-wise. For example, we recently had one of our alumni players was invited to the Washington Capitals camp, so it's the first kind of NHL connection that we've had. But we've also, sometimes the more satisfying moments are actually off the ice. It's writing letters of recommendation to our former players who are now, for example, example, maybe going into the military or doing other things. And also, just the stories with regard to host families, countless stories about where host families have traveled to go see the players in subsequent years when they're playing higher levels of hockey, or vice versa. A lot of times, I'll hear things from families that'll be like, this player that lived with us 3 years ago came back for a long visit and that sort of thing. So the families really make a lot of lifetime bonds with the players that they host.
It's so awesome. It is really a reciprocal kind of a relationship between these athletes from all over the world and the families that host them. Still need a few spots filled. Tim, if folks are listening to this interview right now and they say, hey, this is something, even, we're a Christian ministry, maybe this is something you could say, this is what God has called me to do, a form of ministry to these kids. Where can they find you online?
They can find us at ElmiraImpact.com, and anyone who would like to know more can shoot an email to us at info at ElmiraImpact.com to learn more about becoming a host family, learn more about partnering with us in terms of business sponsorship, and also learn more. We're always looking for volunteers to help us at our games, too, so learn more about getting involved with us on game days.
That's Tim Colpine with Elmira Impact Hockey, involving the local community in supporting promising young players from around the corner and around the globe as they spend time in Elmira while pursuing their hockey dreams. Please join us again next time as we search for your home, your town, your hero. It's Hometown Heroes on Family Life.
Thank you very much, Mark. Hometown Heroes comes your way every Tuesday during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Not much has changed since last we spoke weather-wise. Very quiet weather pattern upon us. A warm, hazy one to be sure. Rain chances are slim, but they're not nil. We'll talk about that coming up. But for this afternoon, partly sunny, hazy, and warm. High temperatures in the low to mid-80s. Partly cloudy, hazy tonight. Low temperatures, low 60s. Tomorrow and Thursday, a fair amount of sunshine, but tomorrow afternoon could pop a stray thunder shower in parts of New York State. High temperatures both days in the low to mid-80s, and the level of hazy smoke will be diminishing over time.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally at noon, an unusual request from a Scandinavian zoo. Here's reporter Matt Piper.
A zoo in Denmark is asking the public for donations of unwanted small pets or horses to feed its captive predators. The zoo says chickens, rabbits, and guinea pigs are an important part of the diet of its predators, which need whole prey like they would hunt in the wild. The zoo saying, if you have a healthy animal that has to leave here for various reasons, feel free to donate it to us. It's also accepting horses for feeding its animals, which it says on its website are euthanized by a zookeeper and a veterinarian.
All right, I guess that's how they roll in Denmark. Matt Piper reporting. And that's our world, the world we live in, Tuesday, the 5th day of August. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.